It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. Now, here's Joe Concha.
And welcome, everybody, on this lovely Sunday here in the Northeast. You may have seen the video, the photos of just L.A. times 10 kind of smog. Of course, it's not our fault. Thanks, Canada, for nothing. This is why you haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1993. Boom! But yeah, those wildfires were wreaking havoc here, where we had air quality that, trust me, it felt like you were breathing in metal. And the skies were this weird combination of yellow and brown and just horrible conditions. And you're thinking, okay, the World Cup's being played 20 minutes from where I live here in New Jersey. How are these players going to play? Outdoor stadium, MetLife. Well, I guess this truly is the beautiful game, and God was watching, because you wake up this morning and it's gorgeous out. It's like 70, breezy, blue skies. A cold front came through. So now the World Cup will be played under optimum conditions with high around 80 degrees, which is perfect for this time of year, perfect for soccer. And we'll have Argentina defending their World Cup championship against España. My Spaniards, Concha is, of course, Basque, Spain. So I'm rooting for Spain, but I got this whole Michael Jordan thing going on with Messi, where you don't want to bet against him ever in a big spot, the way this guy has played. So while Spain may be the better team, they've only let up one goal the entire tournament, just one. That's insane defense, but going against the best offensive player, whether it's scoring or assist of all time, it will be a match that, even though the U.S. is not in it, they weren't expected to be in it, you're going to see numbers that rival not the Super Bowl per se in this country, but certainly second to it. So my prediction here is that probably 60, 70 million people will be tuning in to watch the World Cup just here in the U.S. alone, billions across the world, and New Jersey will be at the center of it all. Anyway, I got to love the possible 2028 presidential nominee. You got to love AOC, because it truly is all foam and no beer with this one. You know, wow, she's really snarky on social media, and she's young, and maybe that's what we need in this country. And she's a socialist, and socialism is on the rise and all this stuff. Except she isn't very smart. I'm not saying that. I'm not a sexist, right? It's not because she's a Democrat. She just says things that are so inaccurate, and we have a media that never challenges her on this stuff. It really is quite remarkable. And here she's saying that the Senate, like all Democrat socialists are saying, should be abolished. Get rid of the Senate. And if we want to expand this thought for a second, Democratic socialists, according to their manifesto, want to get rid of the presidency as well, where we're just governed by just this one parliamentary group of people. And that's true democracy. So get rid of the Senate, get rid of the presidency, get rid of ICE, get rid of borders, give amnesty to everybody who's come into this country illegally. This is insane stuff. And these people keep getting elected, at least in deep blue cities. As I talked about, the big race is in Michigan, Abdul al-Sayed, because that is a purple state that Trump barely won twice. It's a state that generally goes back and forth, not decided by a lot of votes. So if you want to find the ultimate laboratory as far as a purple state that could go either way, it is certainly Michigan. And al-Sayed could be the Democrat nominee. He would go against a guy, Mike Rogers, very capable. Rogers only lost by something like, it was a small margin, 0.35%, okay, against Alyssa Slotkin in 2024 for one Senate seat. He's running for another one now. If al-Sayed can get the nomination and beat Rogers, then socialism is a very real thing. And as a result, AOC would have a gale force wind at her back as far as winning the nomination, because Democrats will just jump on board and say, yep, we're all socialists now. That's what's winning elections. We just want power. We don't care what integrity we have to sacrifice as far as anti-Semitism or just blowing up the entire Constitution. We want it back. And now socialism is a very cool thing. That's the way that's going to work. They'll nominate AOC if a guy like al-Sayed wins in Michigan. That will be the chain reaction. We've already seen the chain reaction begin with Mamdani in New York, and now other socialists winning in blue cities throughout the country. Washington, D.C. will be next. Anyway, here's AOC getting back to the whole not so smart thing, talking about how the Senate is really a product of Jim Crow. All right, that's the argument. Let's hear it. Cut number 2, go.
I don't support the filibuster. I don't support elements of this institution that we know, were founded on Jim Crow.
I can guarantee you, AOC has not read one thing about Jim Crow. It's just a thing that Democrats throw out whenever a vote doesn't go their way. So it's a relic of Jim Crow, Jim Crow, Jim Crow. All right. Well, here's the problem. AOC, in making this argument, doesn't realize that Jim Crow came 174 years after the Senate was established. So how could it be a product of Jim Crow when it came 174 years later? And the reporter doesn't know this, of course, so the reporter shakes her head along as if she is making a valid point, like she is listening to Einstein himself in the form of AOC. So that's that. And I would hope that if she throws it out there again and she's on with a real network, she refuses to go on with Fox. Like if Brett Baer ever interviewed her, or Martha McCallum, Bill Hemmer, Dana Perino, Harris Faulkner, wouldn't go well because they would be prepared. They would know this answer is coming, and they would explain to her, hey, Jim Crow came 174 years after the Senate, and I'd love to see her reaction. It would be like it was in Munich when she was asked, hey, what's your policy if China were to attack Taiwan? And the ums and the nos went on for a good 20 seconds. In fact, Elias, if you could find that for me, I know that won't be easy. Maybe I'll just try to send you the cut. But yeah, that would be awesome if we could play that at one point during the show to underscore our point. Anyway, here is AOC. Now, she goes to Memphis, okay, to rally for a candidate. And she does this thing where whatever part of the country that she's from, and not just AOC, other Democrats have done this, as we will play for you in a moment. She tries to sound like the people she is speaking to. So when in Memphis, you better sound like a Baptist minister from Memphis in order to, I guess, ingratiate yourself to these people. Anyway, here's cut number 3. It's as cringe as you would possibly expect. Cut 3, go.
We cannot afford to leave Tennessee behind. We cannot afford to leave Kentucky behind, Alabama behind, Mississippi behind, Georgia behind, South Carolina behind.
Oh, that's great. That is so awesome. And because our producers here are awesome as well, we have the clip of her responding to that question. This is when she's at a conference in Munich. So then a serious person is asking her a serious question, and I will go to my grave saying that she has never even pondered this question once in her life, and she wants to be president. This is kind of something that you better really study and really come down to some sort of definitive conclusion on what you would do if you were commander in chief. But this is how this went, and cut number whatever, go.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
You know that we've all been through it. It's like sophomore year, and maybe you were supposed to prepare for an oral exam, like an oral book report, and you have to fill 2 to 3 minutes on what that book was about. That was what we just witnessed from AOC, except she is the hungover sophomore who did not prepare in any way, shape, or form. So she just tried to expand the answer for as long as possible to come to some sort of coherent conclusion, which it still wasn't. We have to get all our economic resources together to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, so if China wants to move on Taiwan, then as long as we got our house in order economically, then China won't do that? Because China thinks Taiwan's theirs. And if an AOC got into office, just like with Biden, with Russia and Ukraine, guarantee you that will happen. Like day 3, China will be like, all right, green light. She'll have no idea what to do. Or she's going to depend on people around her to tell her what to do. and they won't know either, like we see with the Mamdani administration and his lieutenants. Okay, so just to get back to the accent thing one more time, as promised, especially on the female side of the Democratic ledger, whenever a politician from that side of the aisle goes down south, this is what happens. First we have Hillary, then we have Kamala right after her. And yeah, I guess this is part of like some sort of training that we don't know about. Cut number 4, go.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy.
How did she not win?
I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Oh, man.
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
I think they're worse. AOC's was bad. Hillary and Kamala are worse. Now, what do Hillary and Kamala have in common? Right. They both lost multiple times when trying to run for president, not just against Trump in 2016 and 2024. Hillary ran in 2008, and everybody thought it would be, and it's kind of amusing to look back on now, Hillary Clinton versus Rudy Giuliani. Like, you look at all the press clippings, like that was going to be the matchup. America's mayor, right? Very likable. Obviously, his leadership after 9/11, the kind of person you want as commander-in-chief, as somebody who occupies the Oval, versus Hillary Clinton, who, again, first lady, then she's senator, and obviously the Clinton name recognition from Bill Clinton's 2 terms that, that nomination was hers. And instead, it ended up being Barack Obama versus John McCain. So, again, when we try to forecast, and I'm guilty of this, believe me, who's going to be the nominees in 2028? And I tell you, it's either... Definitively, though, I know on the Republican side, I'm sticking to this, even though it is early. It's either J.D. Vance or increasingly more, it feels like it's going to be Marco Rubio against X. And that X factor, is it AOC? Well, as we said, depends on a lot of things that happen between now and then in terms of socialism and if they win in purple areas. But if that doesn't end up happening, is it Newsom? I don't think so. Too phony. Bad record to run on. People like authenticity. And that guy ain't it. So then is it Kamala? I keep going back to it. She's going to have the money. She's going to have the organization. She's got the name recognition. She's a profoundly horrible candidate, but it might be like, well, who else are we going to go with? Buttigieg? Don't think so. Anyway, enough of that. This is Joe Concha. This is the Sunday morning Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Back with so much more in just a moment.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. Now, here's Joe Concha.
And welcome back, everybody. So, what we have is a situation going on at Olive Garden. Well, isn't that where everything begins, basically? The ultimate, when you're like 22, second date place to go to, the Olive Garden. There's always one in every town. When you're 22, it's considered a nice night out. And now they're getting serious about ID. In other words, if you want to order, this is a serious story. I swear to you, all you can eat pizza, you got to show ID. Here's Trace Gallagher from Fox News explaining further in cut number 5. Go.
Here is Olive Garden's all-you-can-eat pasta rules as follows. Quoting here, the never-ending pasta pass is only for use by the pass holder whose name is printed on the pass. Passes are personalized and non-transferable. Pass holders must present a valid photo ID along with the pass at the time of ordering. Okay, so you need an ID to get all-you-can-eat pasta at Olive Garden. You want to go vote? You just show up and put your name anywhere you want, Priya. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm really glad that Olive Garden was able to implement the Save America Act before the U.S. Senate. The fact that eating pasta requires an actual ID before voting in this country is pretty ridiculous. And we see these obvious examples of this across a multitude of things. Anytime you fly, anytime you want to drive a vehicle, if you want to purchase alcohol, if you want to purchase cigarettes, a multitude of things. You actually have to present an ID to prove who you are and your age and that you're eligible to do the thing that you're asking asking to do or purchase. But to vote in this country, a very sacred right, I would argue, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, the Save America from Getting Fat Act over at Olive Garden is it's funny where you literally have to show your ID so you can eat all the pasta you want to eat. But, Democrats say, the ID thing is totally racist to do that in the rest of the country.
Wow. All right. Well, Trace Gallagher, that's Fox News at Night, by the way, which is newsy. Of course, it's a news program, but Trace really brings that element of 11 o'clock feel to it after Gutfeld, where it is infotainment to a certain extent as well. And I mean that as the highest compliment to my friend Trace. Anyway, can you believe it? We are now, doing the math here, 46 years removed to the day when the Gipper, Ronald Reagan, accepted the 1980 Republican nomination for president. Remember, he ran in 76, and that was a tough one because you have a sitting president in Gerald Ford, who obviously that's usually the way it works, that the sitting president gets the nomination without much competition. Reagan, they went all the way to the convention, and Ford was barely able to eke it out. Now, I know Ford wasn't a sitting elected president. We don't want to go in the weeds as far as like the whole Nixon thing, but Ford was there. Obviously, Reagan had an uphill climb as far as getting that nomination. Almost got it, and then came back in 1980 and won it quite easily after a little bit of a run from George H.W. Bush, believe it or not, who eventually became his vice president. But here he is accepting the Republican nomination, and you're going to hear something very familiar at the end of this, perhaps a preview of things to come in cut number 9. Go.
They tell us they've done the most that could humanly be done. They say that the United States has had its day in the sun, that our nation has passed its zenith. They expect you to tell your children that the American people no longer have the will to cope with their problems, that the future will be one of sacrifice and few opportunities. For those who've abandoned hope, we'll restore hope and we'll welcome them into a great national crusade to make America great again.
Make America great again. I'm not saying Trump stole it, all right? It's something that I'm sure other people have uttered, like we want to make America great again. But for Trump to have that as his campaign slogan, that is the optimism, just like a shining city on the hill, or 1,000 points of light, or even hope and change. Like, in other words, you always want optimistic bumper stickers and slogans, and certainly Reagan knew that, Trump knew that, and meanwhile Hillary came up with, I'm with her. That was her slogan. I don't even know what Kamala's was, quite frankly. I simply do not. Like, I like Venn diagrams. Like, how did that go? I don't remember her slogan. That's how unmemorable it was. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. We have so much more, including Democratic Socialists for America co-chair going on Fox News to explain his positions, and it's as disturbing as you might expect. Back with more in a moment.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. Now, here's Joe Concha.
And welcome back, everybody, on this beautiful Sunday morning ahead of the World Cup. And boy, that's going to be a heck of a game. My final prediction, I finally come down to this one. It's going to be Argentina 1, Spain 1. What? We need a winner. You're right. It's going to go to penalty kicks. I think that Spain is so good on defense, even with Messi. They get a goal, probably a late one. That's the way it works. They trail, they make a comeback, but then I think it goes to penalty kicks and then flip a coin, I guess. But in the end, I got a foot of left-hand gold and Lionel Messi. So I think Argentina pulls it out in penalty kicks, and I guess that makes it technically a 2-1 final. All right. So we have this DSA co-chair, Gustavo Gordillo, and he looks every bit the part that you would imagine. Like a cartoon character of like a Democratic Socialist for America. Go Google that name sometime, or just put on DSA co-chair, Fox News, Martha McCallum, and you'll see exactly what this guy looks like. And oh man, they all have to have facial hair apparently. That's a thing with the DSA men. But all right, this is the first cut of 3 I'm going to play, where here is Gordillo. He's asked by Martha, okay, let's say you've had a store, and I'm paraphrasing what Martha may have asked, for 50 years in a location in East Harlem. And then the government decides to put in a government-run grocery store, right down the block from yours. and they could offer slightly lower prices. Again, these are conjured up prices based on the government trying to beat out the competition, and probably would have to borrow money to keep those prices low. In other words, they're not just low for the sake of making them low. There's very little margin, as John Katsimatidis can tell you, in grocery stores in general, like maybe 1-2%. So they would lower them to the point where they'll be operating at a loss. And then, of course, taxpayer money will keep them afloat for a while. Right. And as Margaret Thatcher once famously said, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. And more people are leaving New York and all that tax revenue. So, again, this stuff does not work. But initially, it will look decent on paper. But for that grocery store that's been in operation for 50, 70, 80 years, right, that's operated privately, what happens to them is what Martha says if they go out of business. Then isn't the government actually putting people out of work and putting a whole business out of business for, 5 stores throughout this entire area that has thousands of food stores? Anyway, here's the answer. And boy, talk about saying the quiet part out loud. Cut number 6, go.
Inspiration's great, but if you're the bodega owner, how would you feel if the government opened a big grocery store right next to your bodega?
If one publicly owned grocery store that brings prices down in the neighborhood is enough to put someone out of business, then maybe they shouldn't have been in that business in the first place.
Interesting.
Wow. Maybe they shouldn't have been in that business in the first place. Again, the government's going to be operating at a loss if they bring down prices to the point where they're going to have to use taxpayer money or borrow again from Kathy Hochul, whoever governor is of New York, to keep them low. It's artificial. That's all it is. And then to say, oh, well, screw you, bodega. You know, you've been working your ass off for God knows how long to keep this place afloat. And now it's your fault. You shouldn't have been in that business in the first place. Go learn the code or something like that. Please, by all means, run on that strategy. Let AOC explain that sometime if she's running for president and see how well that goes, especially in swing states. Okay, this is even better. This is where the same DSA co-chair to Martha McCallum, Fox News, says that no one has the right to a double-digit return on investment, whether you run a business, whether you buy stock, 401k, whatever. You should always be confined to 10% or lower if you make an investment. How that makes sense, I have zero idea. But they say this stuff out loud, and I think the calculation is there are enough stupid people out there nodding their head agreeing with that. Cut number 14, go.
The problem we're facing in our housing system is that we talk about tenants and we say they have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They have to be responsible financially. But when we look at the landlords, we don't use those same standards. Landlords in New York have been making a 12% return on their investment on average.
How much should they make? What's fair for the landlord to make if you don't like 12?
They're complaining that 12 is not enough. And we don't think that anyone should have a constitutional right to double-digit returns on their investment. That's why we've implemented...
No one should have a right to a double-digit return on their investment.
No one has a right. That's not...
What are you talking about?
No one's in that. That's not in the Constitution. But what we see is that when we implement a rent freeze, we have landlords who are crying that the government is going to put them out of business.
They're trying to run a business, and they're trying to do it effectively. No, are all landlords perfect? Are some landlords lousy? Of course they are. But I just think that the idea that no one should make a double-digit profit is the antithesis of the desire to, you can be anything you want to be in New York.
Precisely. And by the way, if you do make double-digit returns in your investment or even triple-digit returns, you know what a lot of those smart business people do? They invest more, whether it be in the community, whether it be in their companies themselves. I mean, look at Amazon. Jeff Bezos, who, is considered one of the evil ones because obviously he's a billionaire, could be a trillionaire soon. Amazon employs 1.5 million people. I'm pretty sure that makes people happy, not just having good salaries, but also health benefits for them and their family. And you start taking that stuff away, then they can't invest back in their companies. They can't hire more people, which is exactly why AOC had objected to Amazon building a huge headquarters in her district. And she scared them away enough where they just built it somewhere else. Just like Ken Griffin, CEO of Citadel, where this stupid mayor in Mamdani does a video in front of his apartment, doxing him, just a couple blocks from where Brian Thompson, the CEO, was gunned down of United Healthcare, allegedly, by Luigi Mangione. So, and he says, all right, Ken Griffin, you come here and we're going to make sure we're going to tax that apartment much, much more than we already are. And Griffin was planning on building a $6 billion hub on Park Avenue. And now guess what? That ain't happening anymore. And all those jobs, tens of thousands of them, good paying jobs, on top of the construction jobs, and all the businesses that would have benefited from having all those people work there, it's all gone. It's going to Miami, where I'm certain that Ron DeSantis and the mayor of Miami will be open arms. Oh, by the way, tax-free state on the state income level. Yeah, that's much more attractive. Oh, the weather might be a little bit better, too. So why not go there? And that's what the DSA, you want to run on this stuff. I guess it works in New York City, where in a primary, you get your guy through, low turnout, and then obviously you're going to face an inept Republican, as they have in the last two election cycles. Okay. But nationally, this is going to get slaughtered. I can guarantee you that. All right, one more from these clowns, and this is also gold. Here he is, Gustavo Gordillo, who has quite the alpha voice, doesn't he? Saying, all right, we got to abolish the Senate because it's undemocratic, which, wait, what? Cut number 7, go.
And one of the most basic things is Article 1 in our Constitution. Are you in favor of abolishing Article 1 of the Constitution?
No. We support a democratic route to transformative change in the United States. We think that we need to put the working class before the billionaire class.
So you don't want to abolish the Senate, the United States Senate, because that's what Article 1 is.
The United States Senate is an undemocratic institution. It gives more representation to people in smaller states than to the 30 million people in California.
That's the whole point. Yes, you get representation in smaller states. So what they're saying is that the country should be run by New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Seattle, San Francisco. All right. Again, this is insane stuff. And I thought they were going to try to Trojan horse this stuff, bait and switch. All right, get it in, fool people, and then, oh, okay, this is what we really are. Oh, no, they're saying it loud and proud. Again, please, for the love of God, have AOC be your nominee, because she also supports all of this. And like we talked about earlier in the show, she says, yeah, I want to abolish the Senate because it's a Jim Crow product of Jim Crow. Except the Senate was established 174 years before Jim Crow. Like, literally, the arguments are so profoundly stupid and easy to dissect that once they're remotely challenged, they're going to make the fools of themselves, like that guy just did with Martha McCallum over at The Story. Anyway, let's get to the fun stuff, shall we? Here's Mamdani, sticking with the whole DSA thing. He wants to arrest Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, the minute he steps foot in New York, let's say if he's going to the UN. But he really has no idea how he's going to do that. Because, again, it's all about promises, but execution, we'll worry about that part later. Cut 10, go.
Last question on this topic. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is perhaps planning to visit New York for the UN General Assembly. You pledged during your campaign and after you won to order his arrest to comply with the International Criminal Court warrant. What will happen if he comes in September?
Look, I believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu belongs in The Hague. He's a war criminal who has been charged by the International Criminal Court. And what you will find is that is an opinion that is held by many purely because of what his actions have wrought over these last many years. I've also said that I will follow the laws that we have here in New York City because I believe that there's an importance in following the law as a leader who presides over our city, and that's something that I plan to do.
Meaning? I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means.
Meaning that whatever the law allows me to do in New York City, that's what we will do, but we won't be writing our own laws to that end.
What does the law allow you to do?
Yeah.
That's an active conversation with our legal department in seeing what the prospects are we have here in our municipality. However, what we've seen at the national level is a desire sometimes to write your own laws, to go outside of the bounds of legality. That's not something we have an interest in.
I mean, normally when people come to a UN General Assembly, they're granted a sort of amnesty because it is the seat of the United Nations. Is that what you're thinking that you'll honor, or you're actively looking to see if you can actually arrest him?
I think we are looking at all of our legal obligations, and one of them is with regards to the United Nations. But the other part of this is we're not talking about a personal assessment of Benjamin Netanyahu. We're talking about the International Criminal Court.
The International Criminal Court has no teeth. It's symbolic. It's like when you have a warrant that comes out for you. Well, you know, the minute you step foot somewhere outside of your country, you're going to be arrested. Explain to me, or show me one example when that has ever happened. We have a warrant from where? The International Criminal Court. There's no there. And Mamdani, you see him stumbling through these answers. Well, that's a question for our legal department. Oh, that's not a punt or anything. And by the way, he has been in office for nearly 8 months. And this is one of his big campaign promises. And they're still looking into it. Either you can or you can't. So when he finally says, oh, boy, I really wanted to arrest this guy, but I can't because my legal people says I can't. It's just such nonsense. Oh, by the way, belongs in The Hague. He's committed genocide. This is the Democratic platform. 100 Democrats, more than, including Joe Concha and others who want to run for president, voted against funding the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome keeps Israel in existence. Otherwise, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, Iran, everybody else that surrounds that country would blow it into oblivion with missiles day and night raining down on civilians, if not for the Iron Dome. And now we have American lawmakers on the left saying, well, you're on your own. Screw you. That is the new platform here. No question. All right. Before we go to break, here's Mamdani talking about how, you know, as a country, we have a legal obligation to accept all illegals who come into the country. In other words, open the borders again. Insane stuff. Cut number 11. Go.
I think oftentimes we are forced into these false choices.
But would you have asylum seekers be able to, you know, for example, ask for asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border?
What is the law today? What are they legally entitled to do?
I mean, the law today, under President Trump, the law today is that they're not.
But in terms of international obligations, in terms
and that is meant that the border has seen a dramatic drop in illegal crossings. So I guess that is the tension that a lot of people see.
I think that what we've found from the Republican administration has been a desire to make any and all immigration illegal.
No, that is such a lie. Legal immigration is not welcomed by the Trump administration, by Donald Trump, who's married literally to a legal immigrant. That is a lie, and he knows it, but he's going to say it anyway. And when Democrats run in 2028, whether it's a Democrat socialist or not, they're going to push that lie, and it simply ain't true. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is the Sunday morning Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. We wrap this puppy up in just a moment.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. Now, here's Joe Concha.
Okay, everybody. So, Hunter Biden loves microphones. We've come to that conclusion because he keeps doing interviews where the rest of the, at least establishment Democrat Party, wants him to shut the hell up. We don't want to hear from the Bidens anymore. And sure enough, Joe Biden's going to be going on a book tour starting in September. Oh, I can't wait to see how that goes. He'll go on The View. He's going to go all these friendly places, I'm sure. But without a teleprompter, again, we're going to see that the elevator is not going up to the penthouse. And I'm sure that if he does one remotely challenging interview about his presidency, about the cover-up, he is going to short circuit and probably get into angry Joe Biden, which is probably the most entertaining aspect of him. But anyway, speaking of angry, that is Hunter. And here he is with the despicable Jennifer Welsh podcaster, the girl who said that Democrats should embrace celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, just to give you an example of where this person comes from. So Hunter talking about Donnie and a guy, he sees a leader there. He sees a guy who keeps his promises. Oh, this is hilarious. Cut number 19, go.
They are, they look at people like Zoran Mamdani and they go, oh, my God, it's the end of the Democratic Party. I look at Zoran Mamdani and I go, there's a leader.
I completely agree.
Every single thing that they talked about, it was, people are going to flee the city and they're going to go crazy. And, it's the worst thing that could ever happen. And the Democratic Party is going to be tagged with, this Muslim, blah, 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 blah. And here he is. And he made promises. And you know what he did? He kept them.
Yeah.
He kept them. Mm-hmm. He's lowering rent. No, he's building co-op grocery stores. He's doing something about, kindergarten, pre-kindergarten. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's all. That's what people care about.
He doesn't throw anybody
really,
under.
Really good.
He's really, really, really good.
Okay, so let's see. Let's go through those. Kept his promises. The food stores. Anybody see them yet? Oh no, you won't this year, and you won't next year, and you won't the year after that. The first one is scheduled to be done by 2029. And what was a $15 million per store budget is now ballooning to $55 million per store. Great. And again, 5 stores in the 5 boroughs ain't going to lower costs for everybody as far as affordability. And oh, by the way, this thing is going to cost a fortune, each of them, to build. And obviously they'll have to borrow to do that. As far as Hunter saying that people aren't leaving New York City, well, let's see. New York City lost approximately 114,000 more residents to other U.S. cities than it has gained. This is according to ABC News. Across the broader state, you meant to say, over 415,000 people have moved out. Any questions? No one wants to live here anymore. High taxes, no return on investment on those taxes, and the fact that leadership is inept. People are leaving more than ever before. Promises made, promises kept. Oh, free childcare? Don't see that either. Free busing? Ain't happening. So again, I mean, Democrats want to hitch their wagon to this guy and then lie about it. I guess that is the strategy. Okay, so this is quite hilarious. Gavin Newsom, who really wants to be president, he thinks that President Trump, after his speech on Thursday night, which we carried most of here live on WABC here in New York, Donald Trump should be removed under the 25th Amendment, the California governor says, and cut 15. Go.
Well, the only thing missing tonight in Donald Trump's speech was tinfoil. This was a legitimate 25th Amendment moment, the ramblings of a mad king. Don't get me wrong, foreign interference in our elections, that's a real thing. Nothing about what you watched tonight, though, was real. It's make-believe. He wants to rig the election in 2026. He knows he's going to lose.
Like he predicted in 2024, Gav. And oh, by the way, it's very, very real that the Chinese have absolutely interfered in our elections. The CIA and FBI say it, not so much Trump. He was just declassifying reports that said that. Anyway, before we go, here's a flashback to Gavin Newsom in 2024 saying that Joe Biden is completely coherent. He should be president for another 4 years through 2029 to show you what a phony this guy is. Cut 16, go.
I never had, period, full stop. I would be lying to you, and I won't lie to you as it relates to the direct engagement I had with Joe Biden that ever suggested a cognitive decline.
Oh, boy. All right. Any questions, anybody? Unfortunately, this hour has gone by so fast. But we are back tomorrow here in New York, at least at 9 p.m. Eastern time on WABC and on other stations around the country and around the world. Until then, 2 words for you. Go Spain. And bye-bye. That's 4.